about the following is investment advice. It is Randy Kirk's weird brain taking his best shot at how I think things are going to manifest over the next 15 months or so. It's probably not going to manifest anything like my estimates. Now, the first couple of weeks here, first month or so, those are, and to the end of the year, those are predictions. These are things that I will hang my hat on, and you can chastise me later for having predicted incorrectly. Please take into consideration that I do this for fun. I'm not currently buying or selling the stock. I am still active in leaps, but I'm not in and out of leaps. I just buy them and hold them. But this is my sincere belief as to what's going to happen. And it is pretty much like if you were trying to guess what your favorite baseball or football or basketball team was going to do this weekend. Same kind of deal. Because I got no horse in the race. All I got is the fun of really trying to dig in and get the predictions right. So let's take a look now. Tesla has so many amazing catalysts lined up in the next 90 days. It's almost hard to keep it straight. So I'm going to get right down and make a list. I'm going to make a list here and then you guys can think it through. I'd love to hear your comments, whether you think these things are going to happen or not happen, or whether you think they'll have this kind of an impact. But let's start right out with what I consider to be the first and maybe one of the most important catalysts. And it's just the shipment and deployment numbers that are coming up on October 2nd. And then the follow-up with the earnings call and earnings report on October 22nd, 21st. Not exactly sure what day that's going to be, but in there someplace. And so those are going to be very, very important. Why? Because they're going to be beats. And if you've heard me say this already, if you watch commonly, and so these are going to be beats. And my expectation is that we're going to hit between 480,000 and 510,000 vehicles shipped, and between 13 and 15 gigawatts deployed. Now, the street isn't making any estimates of gigawatts deployed, but I'm going to guess and bet that they're thinking it's going to come in around 11 or something like that. And then on the cars, they're still sitting at 445, and nobody's at 445 anymore. Even Troy Tesla is at 470. And other people are already predicting 500 or more. So again, I'm not doing this my 480 to 510 is not based on doing any of my own research, not digging in and checking out what's happening in every single environment, other than the fact that we're seeing stronger numbers out of Europe than we expected, with them adding additional production. We're seeing stronger numbers than expected out of China because of the Model YL, and we're seeing outstanding numbers out of the United States because of the end of the $7,500 tax incentive. So that's my number, 480 to 510, 13 to 15 gigawatts deployed. These would both be significant beats. And this information is now widely known, but very few analysts have upgraded their shipment numbers or their EPS estimates. And that's going to happen all this week. That's what's going to be happening all week. You're going to see one after another, they're going to be shifting up their numbers because they're way behind on the stock estimates anyway, because the stock is now trading higher than almost all of their estimates. So either those will be in line, the estimates that they make will be in line with October 2nd reality, or they won't. It doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that they're increasing them that matters. Now, and on October 2nd, we'll have a reckoning. And my guess is that most of these people will not get as high as 480. And most of them will not be anywhere close to 13 to 15 on deployments, and they're thinking. And none of them will be anywhere close to the 70 cents that I'm thinking is going to be 80 cents, maybe even on earnings. So I'm saying that we'll see on October 2nd, we will be at 440. I don't think we'll be higher than 440, depending on other things that might happen during the next 7 trading days. There's all kinds of other possibilities. We'll talk about some of those in a minute. But if there's no other significant or serious news, we had the NISTA news a little while ago, which if you didn't hear my earlier broadcast, we talked about that NISTA is going to use performance as their metric, as opposed to the kinds of hardware that are that's being used. And that's a very, very good piece of news. It's not as good as you want it because you want them to say this is the performance that we're looking for. But until that happens, we've at least got, a step in the right direction. All right. So that's where we are. Those things are going to drive the price up to 440 by October 2nd. That's my estimate. I'll live or die by that estimate, depending on, of course, there's always negative things that can happen in the general market, or some piece of news comes out about Tesla that's true or not true. But during the same period and after that period, sitting out in the wind, and nobody knows when it will happen or if it will happen, or it's going to be next week or the following week. But we have some seriously big things that are going to happen someday in that period. We got FSD 14. We have more cars being deployed in robotaxi. We've got safety rider coming out. We've got opening it up to the public. I don't know which one of those is going to happen in the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know which one of those are going to move the market, because it's just hard to know how the market's thinking about all this. But as robotaxi becomes more and more and more real, I think we will see movement on the stock. And I believe that between the 2nd, when we do this beat, and October 21st and 22nd, we will get to all-time high. We'll have some of these things happening between now and then. We will have a beat on the profits, and people will be raising their estimates again after the meeting and after the shipment numbers on the 2nd and before the meeting, and that will steadily move us up to the all-time high. Then we've got the Model Q. My best guess is that we're going to get this somewhere around October 1st. It could be before by a couple of days. Can't be much before because we're almost there. It could be right after. It could be another month after. I'm not sure. The only thing that I can think is holding them back right now would be some concern that maybe there would be cancellations of people who get their orders in by September 30th, but are not going to get delivery for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And so they may not want people to cancel because the new Model Q is going to be so amazing, or because some people just would rather spend a little less and don't mind that it's a little less car. But I think for the most part, people that got the $7,500 savings are going to want the $7,500 savings. So anyway, not sure how they're going to come down on that. So maybe the Model 2 gets introduced. Now, if it does, because the stock is already going to be moving up towards all-time high, I'm not sure that if it gets introduced in October, I'm not sure it's going to do much to the stock. I think maybe with everything else that's happening, sorry, Gary Black, but I'm not sure this is going to be the thing that really drives the stock higher, even if it's a new form factor. I think it doesn't matter, as you know, whether it's a new form factor or whether it's just a lower priced version, but we'll see what happens and we'll see when it comes out. I just don't think it's going to have a lot of impact right now. I think it'll mostly solidify the 440. Maybe we do bounce, up to 488 because of it, but I think that's where we're going to stick. I think we're going to be at all-time high. We could go to 500. It's really not, I don't think that's going to be that meaningful, but somewhere in the 488, 500 range through the meeting and after the meeting. Okay, what about the meeting? Elon will be flying. He obviously wants approval of his pay package. He's going to be his very best self. I'm thinking the street will be around 70 cents before the meeting. And so we'll need to beat that in order to get to $500, to stay above $500 or to break $500. So if the street is at 70 cents and we come in at 65, that's not going to be good. So it could just cause us to go down a little bit and then come back. Anyway, and it also depends on just all the other things I just talked about. How many of those things are really in play? Now, there's going to be announcements. I think there's going to be lots of announcements. Yeah, I know it's not going to be new product announcements, but it's going to be announcements. The announcements will be about FSD, about robotaxi. It's only 70 days before the end of the year. I do not expect any optimist news, but there will be lots of conversations about what's happening with robotaxi, what's happening with battery packs, what's happening with Cybercab, just updates, all right? And then we're only, on October 22nd, we're only a couple of weeks away from November 6th. So I think we're probably looking at coming between the meetings. I think we'll bounce up to around 550, because again, I'm expecting there will be enough information out there, enough change, enough robotaxi stuff happening by November 6th. By then, we've got to have safety driver out. We've got to have, two or three cities actually, running with regular, anybody using the app that wants to. That's what, and a lot of cars out, maybe 300-400 cars out, 100 cars, 200, 250, whatever. That's what I think. You need a few of those things combined to get to your 550, but that's where I think we'll be. I think that's where we'll be at the meeting. Okay, we will have major robotaxi rollouts, as I just said, within that area. And we could, if there's actually solid progress, I mean, like really solid progress on robotaxi, if the Model Q has been introduced and it looks like a good one and people are really liking it, they're getting lots of orders. If we see China continuing to do well, if we see Europe continuing to do well, if we just kind of have a generally good looking kind of situation, I think we could be looking at 600 even before the November 6th meeting. Assuming the pay package passes, the other news will likely be around speculation for the end of the year and into 2026. There could be announcements about Cybercab, about Optimus, about Megapacks, about solar, about semi, about robotaxi, any of those things, and maybe all of those things. We could even have some new factory announcements. We could have some factory expansion announcements. We could have battery announcements about 4680. We've all forgotten about 4680. We could have information about semi, and maybe it's going to be rolling out in November early or December. All kinds of situations. But what Elon's going to be talking about is 2026, the epic year. And you know what? Because we're so close to the end of 2025, we'll even be looking forward. And so will the stock pickers and the analysts. They'll be looking forward to 2027, which of course is going to be not an epic year. It's going to be a ludicrous year. Number 6, we will get unsupervised sometime before now and the end of the year. Once we get unsupervised, I say the stock goes to 750. I think it might go to 700. If we have all those things I just talked about, we might be looking at 700 after the meeting. After the November 6th meeting, we might be looking at around 700. If we get unsupervised, now we get up to 750. And then, as I've been saying all along, if we get at least 500 vehicles, and hopefully a lot more than 500 vehicles, and they're deployed in at least 3 cities without safety riders, in at least most of those, at least 2 of those cities, then I think we're going to get very close to, if not hit 1,000 before the end of the year. Now, that's the stretch. That's the biggest stretch, and you'll see why in a minute as we talk about next year. But that's a stretch, but I think we could get there if we have 500 or more cars and 3 cities. Now, many negative things. Again, let me just say lots of negative things can happen. But I think the economy is going to be roaring. We will have 2 more rate cuts by then. The macro will be helping Tesla. The street will be able to start estimating robotaxi in detail, and that will matter. On January 2nd, we will get the next information with regard to shipments and with regard to deployments, and I think total vehicles will be about the same as the previous quarter. But deployments will be up to 17 to 20, and it matters. It matters a lot, and people will start to recognize that it matters a lot. And if we're already pushing 1,000, I don't think it's going to help that much. If we're going into the second at or around 1,000, 950, 970, 1,000, 1,020, I don't think that the beat on deployment will matter. No, we don't care. January 21st, they should, but they won't. January 21st, that will be approximately when the next meeting is held, the next earnings call and earnings meeting. And this will be the kickoff to the epic year. There will be no more Tesla left. The Tesla queues are done because the robotaxis will be out there. There'll be more of them than Waymo. The rider numbers will be solid. We'll be able to see how many rides they're getting, how many miles, how many dollars. We'll see unsupervised FSD will be a huge seller, massive seller, and it'll show up in profits. Everybody will be happy, but the stock will be stuck at 1,000. Lots of cars selling, lots of FSD selling, cybercabs coming out of the factory, semi-trucks coming out of the factory. Everything will be happening exactly as we've all been painting it forever, but we'll be stuck at 1,000. You know what was stuck at 1,000? because the valuation of the company at 1,000 will be 3.3 trillion. And people will be looking at that going, that makes them number 4 in the world in terms of the company's valuation. And some people will be skeptical of that valuation. Now, if we're not already at 1,000, let's say I'm way off and we're only at 800 going into the end of the year. Well, then I think there's a good chance that by that meeting on the 21st, roughly, that's when we will get to 1,000. And maybe it'll take a few days after, maybe till February 1st to get to that 1,000. But we're going to be up against getting close to the 1,000 by the end of the year, and then in the 1,000 range at the end of January, but not higher. I just don't think it'll be very, very hard to get people to start thinking that Tesla is a bigger deal than Apple, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. Sometime in 2026, the Optimus will be offered up for sale. We might need that to break that. We might need that Optimus in order to break above 1,000. So we might be sitting around 1,000, dropping down to 900, might even drop back down to 750, and then back to 1,000. But in order to really break through 1,000 and stay above 1,000, I don't think it's going to really matter much how many more cars are out, how many more cities Tesla is into. It's all going to help. It's all going to be positive. It's all going to be underpinnings, and people will become bigger and bigger believers in the robotaxi program. The cyber cabs will be fun. All that will be fun. But I think it's going to be hard to break over the 1,000 level until Optimus is real. By the way, people sleeping in their cars is going to be a really huge deal. It's really going to be a big deal. It's going to be something that people talk about. I still don't think the stock is going to be above 1,000 until Optimus comes out. Now, once Robotaxi and Semi and Optimus and Cybercab and unsupervised are all doing what they should, then we should start climbing again. Hopefully, Optimus will rent for like $70,000 to $100,000 a year. Hopefully, Robotaxi will be at $2 a mile. I'm just hoping Elon is going to milk it. And that'll be helpful to getting us to the $2,000 per share by the end of the year. And you're like, wow, we're going to go from 1,000 to 2,000 after all, in the balance of the year. Yeah, I think that once Optimus is out, and if it is selling for renting for $70,000 to $100,000 a year, people start doing the math. Yeah, and they start seeing that, the reports coming back are that Optimus can do the work, and we can see Optimus doing the work, and Robotaxi is expanding to all these cities. Yeah, I think we go to 2,000, but not more. It'll stop at 2,000. We'll also be seeing updates for the ludicrous year. That'll help. And Elon will probably be saying this is how many Optimi he plans to make, and this is how many Robotaxis we think will be out there, and we'll be getting stuff from Europe and from China and from other countries around the world that they're going to allow Robotaxi and our cyber cabs, and maybe there'll be semi-trucks being shipped to Europe and maybe to China. There's all kinds of things that could really, really help, but the big thing is going to be Optimus. All right, I told you I'm going to do a 3-part series starting tonight about Elon Musk. If you weren't listening, if you didn't hear earlier, although like everybody I think is watching the earlier show already, but if you didn't see it, I said I'm going to do this 3-part series where I'm going to talk about Elon Musk. Understanding the Tesla company, you got to understand Elon Musk. Elon is Tesla. Tesla is Elon. This is why I've been writing about Elon Musk, doing these programs about Elon Musk all this time. And I think that as much as there could be at least 16, if you read the Elon Musk method, I think there's 16 things about Elon Musk that make him really, really special. But these 3 are kind of fun, and they spell cat. So it makes it easy for you to remember. The first one is curiosity. And that's the one we're going to do tonight. Tomorrow morning, we will do the A, and then tomorrow night, we will do the T. Audacity and tenacity. All right, that's what we're going to do. But there will be other news at the same time. But I just thought this is the curiosity is first here. So let's talk about curiosity. Remember now, everything I do is based on what I hear Elon saying. Of course, I'll take what Elon says, and I go beyond what Elon says to how I analyze what he's saying. But these are quotes from Elon about his feelings about who he is with regard to curiosity. And by the way, one of the biggest things that you or anybody else can have in life is a great understanding of who you are. And I think that is one of Elon's superpowers, is he knows who he is. He knows exactly who he is. He knows what his capabilities are. Does he make mistakes? Of course he does, but he knows that too. All right, here we go. Curiosity as a personal motivation and driving force. He most commonly describes curiosity as his core inspiration, linking it to existential questions and understanding the universe. He says, I am inspired by curiosity. That is what drives me. So let us expand the scope and scale of consciousness so that we may aspire to understand the universe. That was an X post on April 3rd, 2022. He says this, he says, I'm motivated by curiosity more than anything, and I just desire to think about the future and not be sad. It's like a deep curiosity about what the universe is, why we're here. I mean, I think the why of things is very important. My driving philosophy is to expand the scope and scale of consciousness in order that we might understand the nature of the universe. Now, I'm a very curious guy, and I think that everybody that's entrepreneurial is very curious. I think scientists and engineers are very curious. I think anybody that's creative has to be curious. Okay, but I'm not curious on his level. Yeah, I'm curious about the beginnings of things and the endings of things. You know, the traditional, what's our purpose and how did we get here and what happens afterwards. I'm interested in all of that. But as a born again Christian, I have a book that tells me exactly what happened. But does that mean that I'm not interested in the philosophy and the things that other people think about those issues? And I've done comparative religion classes because I'm curious about humans and about how they think. So yeah, I care very much about those things, but not on his level. Next, he says, in terms of day-to-day habit, I think being curious about the world and how the world works, curious about everything really, I think curiosity is an extremely important thing to have. And we need to be somewhat obsessive about the curiosity. Probably obsessive curiosity is the number one thing that if you want to, basically saying, if you want to be successful in life, if you really want to have fun in life, if you really want to get ahead in life and have every day just be more exciting than the last day, then just be super, super curious, because that means there's something to wake up for in the morning to go pursue and to find and something that you may not have been interested in a week ago or even an hour ago, and now you're interested in it. That was on a video call at a G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. He says, cool, quote, cool, I studied physics because I was curious about the nature of reality. That was the next post. He says, if I were to describe my philosophy, it is a philosophy of curiosity. I did have this existential crisis when I was around 12. What is the meaning of life? Is it all pointless? Why not just commit suicide? Why exist? He got very depressed. I read the religious texts. I read the philosophy books, especially the German philosophers. They made me quite depressed. Frankly, I was real depressed. One should not read Schopenhauer and Nietzsche when you're a teenager. But then I read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a book on philosophy in the form of humor. And the point that Adams was making was that we don't actually know what questions to ask. It's all about the right questions as opposed to getting to the right answers. He says, my life is finite, really just a flash in the pan on the galactic timescale. But if we can expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we're better able to figure out what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe. And maybe we can find out the meaning of life. That was a New York Times Deal Book Summit interview. Well, then he says, look, he describes his religion as the religion of curiosity and greater alignment, with the goal of deepening our understanding of the nature of the universe. This involves expanding consciousness and scale and scope, and he believes it's good to have multiple religions and different perspectives. The actions that follow from this goal should increase the probability that the future will be good, he thinks, including expanding consciousness and increasing the population of Earth. He says, a new philosophy of the future is needed. I believe it should be curiosity about the universe, expanding humanity to become a multi-planet, then interstellar. That was an X post. He says, Then he goes on to AI. What about curiosity with regard to AI? He says a maximum curious AI is probably best. The cat lobby will oppose this, of course, but it will receive strong support from monkeys named George. And then finally, he says it is the goal of AI. If the goal of AI is curiosity, in other words, understanding the universe, then it will aid humanity because we are more interesting than non-humanity. And that was also an X post. All right. I hope you like that. Let me know in the comments below whether you believe anything I just said. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you hit the, Patreon, that'd be lovely. If you'd like to join Patreon, I'd like to have you do that. I know you're all waiting because I'm going to make a deal with the book, and then the book keeps getting later and later. So anyway, but there will be a deal with the book. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, I understand that you're waiting. And then remember again that earlier today, the CERN Basher, I'll put a card up. I also put a card up for the video I just did a little while ago, which was the news of the day, including that big NISTA news. And then tomorrow morning we will do A, and tomorrow night we'll do T, but we'll also do the Monday morning show as we always do on Sunday night, where we talk about what in the world is going to happen next week. You know what happens next week is PCE. So we talk about that and a lot more. It has been great. Of course it has been talking to you.